He's a very, very kind man.
Andy helped me develop as an artist.
And the epitome of a mentor.
The drawing studio and Andy in particular were incredibly instrumental, not only in my artistic development, but almost, I guess I would call it my worldview.
After I had taken an art class at another facility, and it was a disaster, but my meeting with Andy was a revelation.
We started in 1968. We bought this place for $68,000, I think it was. It was up almost for taxes. And then the first 3 or 4 years were chaos. How we had to go through changes ourselves in order to live this way. There was a long period there of 5 years in which we didn't know if we were going to make it or not. About 35 people. We were 45 at the beginning. A lot of kids have gone to college until they're away. But there's a ranch family that's all over the world now who come back frequently and who visit often. We feel like we're the kind of grandma's farm now for people who, not all who live here, but who come here frequently. And we have studios. We work together. We do public art together. My father quickly got tuberculosis after I was born, and he died when I was 14. During those years, I can remember I had to deal with being alone a lot. Somehow art was my solace and my activity. As a 14-year-old chore boy in Colorado on a couple of ranches, and immediately I was pressed into service to paint the names of the ranches on the side of a truck. I was delighted to be a cowboy for, this was 1950. It was a good life for a high school kid. Work with hardworking guys, cowboys and lumberjacks like that, who taught me how to work. When I eventually went into the intellectual work of universities and art schools, it stood me in such good stead because I had already learned as a boy that there's a lot of ways of being smart. And most of them are not around the universities.
One afternoon working with Andy, he just spat on the table and dipped his brush in acid and the spit, and then just started brushing on his plate. Kind of revealed to me how printmaking wasn't something that he felt should be inaccessible. It was just another thing that he did.
Just a little bit about my life on the ranch looks a lot like this photo. We're in our 50th year this year, so we've got a lot of family out there. My 4 kids moved in with me after I divorced from my first wife, Jean Rush. I wouldn't see them for like days on end because they ran as a rat pack. The kids lived together, and so they ate in whatever house they were in at the time. A few pictures of my partner in life, Ann Wooden. Ann, of course, was a writer with a huge reputation in her own right. We found each other in midlife, made a mess of things for a while we learned how to get together, and then I lived with her for 50 years and she was my other half. She just passed away this last year, and I'm learning how to be a single guy without her, which is really hard.
In his teaching as an artist, he said, you know, in the end, the decision you make doesn't matter so much as the integrity you bring to the process of making the decision. And sometimes that involved having a drawing implement or a paintbrush in your hand. Sometimes it didn't, but the process was exactly the same. So,
artists are in art school, wherever they are naturally drawn to how are you going to make a living with this. That's the question. Well, that's the wrong question for art. That's not the question. The question is, what ways are there to use your art to explore the larger questions of what it is to be alive and a human being and relevant to our time on the planet right now? That's the question. So I've explored, like I've done football covers for the university in the 70s. I've done theater arts work. I've spent a lot of time with my friends making public art. I found myself making tile for my own bathroom. And all of a sudden I'm making tile for fireplaces, and I'm making tile for people's gardens. And suddenly the garden is now my art form. And so I did hundreds and hundreds of pieces, or sometimes whole inventions of ways to use art in the outside spaces where we sit and live most of our lives in Arizona. People said that they had a hard time getting their head around what kind of artist I was, because I'm not easy to understand. It's because I'm exploring where art is useful. So to understand my relationship to communication, to the nature of printing as the main avenue of talking to as many people as possible with my art and with my commentary, and then the ranch life, which is about community, and then of course this place, our drawing studio, which clearly is a family by this time after 27 years.
That's cute.
So they're all pieces of what you need to know about me as to why I'm sitting here today.